Hello, I'm Michelle Steward, Associate Professor at Wake Forest University School of Business. My colleague, Professor Jim Narus, and I promised that we would share with you some insights from a survey that you participated in recently. This experiment started from our findings in previous research that were rather novel, and those findings involved the idea that customer engagement was actually higher when a purchasing professional read a negative review from someone outside the company rather than a negative review from someone inside the company. This led us to conduct a field experiment that focused on what we call source similarity. The field experiment simply means that you were shown one of three scenarios at random. Each of the scenarios involved a negative review of a supplier. The difference in these three scenarios was who was writing the review. In one case, the writer of the review was someone within the focal purchasing manager's company. In the other two cases, the reviewer was external to the company, but the difference was one was very similar to the focal purchasing manager's company and one was very different. We were interested in how these differences of the reviewer of a negative review affect something we refer to as customer engagement. So what did we find out? First, customer engagement is an index comprised of four key variables. One, the likelihood to learn more about a supplier, the positive attitude about a supplier, the intention to buy, and positive word of mouth. The first key finding was that if the negative review was written by a purchasing professional external to the company, and that company was very different from the focal manager's company, the customer engagement was higher than if the source were more similar. This means that these external reviewers from different companies actually spurred the purchasing manager to have higher levels of engagement. The second key finding was as we hypothesized, and that was that external sources from companies very similar to the purchasing manager produced the same levels of customer engagement as a negative review written by an internal source. So what does all of this mean? Evaluations need context, and that context has to include other aspects, especially when co-production and customization is involved. The interesting aspect of this to us was that the first thought is that negative reviews altogether would be dismissed. That's not what we found. In fact, we found this likelihood to want to learn more about a supplier, despite the negative review, could be attributed to the idea that the purchasing manager thought that the fault might not lie with the supplier, but instead with the other buyer that came from a company very different from theirs. We offer one cautionary note, and that goes back to this idea of evaluations need context. Exploring the ideas of the internal processes, the internal client's culture, the internal client's willingness to embrace innovation becomes critical when comparing whether that negative review might be due more to the supplier or to the buyer. We offer you this short summary and insights from our last research, and most importantly, offer you our thanks. We could not conduct this type of research without you. This is a part of a larger body of research on business-to-business engagement and digital-based communities. We'd love to share more of the research with you as we continue, and again, thank you for your help.